What's going on, YouTube? We're here with a deck profile for Spellbook Prophecy. We got Kyle Burns here at Dragon's Den in Poughkeepsie, New York. We're going to get into the deck profile.
Alright, what's going on, guys? Obviously, this set's gotten support out of the last two sets. It's getting a little more out of the next one, so there is room for this to grow. It is a control-heavy build, but it does have pretty good push power when it comes down to it. There's a lot of explosive plays the deck can make. A lot of the early setup is going to be control. First thing in the deck, two Spellbook Magician of Prophecies. This is essentially your Stratos for the deck. It searches out any Spellbook spell card that you need out of the deck. This can help you set up your plays if you need something in your hand that you don't have. It's really nice if you need to grab a third Spellbook to make your High Priestess live. That's great as well. It gets a little cloggy at 3. It is only a 500 attack, but having 2 in there is really nice to grab you whatever you need. Whatever you need. 2 Temperance of Prophecy. This is your play that gets you out of High Priestess. If you activate a Spellbook during the turn, you can sack it off to special summon a level 5 or higher light or dark spellcaster out of the deck. So obviously there's other spellcasters that the deck can run that are targets for it. I like Endymion. I'm still running that as a test target right now. Cybernetic Magician is also a kind of cool one that I'm experimenting with. But right now, High Priestess is the most explosive one that you can go into.
Indeed.
And on that note, 3 High Priestess. I mean, she's a dark arm for the deck. She's 2,500. She has a bunch of different ways you can get her out. Obviously, you can double sack for her if you're feeling bold. You can also reveal 3 spellbooks, like I said, to get her out onto the field as well. And once per turn, you can remove a spellbook from the graveyard to pop a card your opponent controls, which is really nice.
Rich, you want to be on a YouTube video?
One-ofs for Prophecy in the deck are Hermit and Strength. Hermit level goes up by 2 and attack by 300 for every spellbook you activate. So when you need to make a large play for like a Hierophant or a Big Eye, Hermit and 2 spellbooks is a level 7. That right there is a really simple, Big Eye or Hierophant. Strength, once per turn, allows you to shuffle a spellbook spell card back into the deck, and you can target any spellcaster on the field and permanently raise its level by 1, its attack by 500, which is nice for being able to push over things that you couldn't necessarily get over. I mean, this alone lets you get over, 19s really easily in a turn. And also, what I like to do sometimes, if I'm afraid of the Gore's play, is I'll summon this, I'll attack in first. If they drop the Gores when I have a High Priestess out, I can use this afterwards to push High Priestess up to a 3,000, which puts it out of Gores' range, which is nice as well. Other spellcaster support that the deck can run, obviously Veilers are a great target. They're also tuners, which is pretty cool. We'll get into that a little bit later, but obviously Veilers is a spellcaster, and it's an awesome card in the current meta. And 2 Breakers. Breakers are just a nice 19 that allow you to also get rid of back row. Spot removal is really key in this deck. For games 2 and 3, you can also sideboard into some different options like Kaikus and stuff like that. But off the bat, main game, game 1 pre-side, this is usually what I felt was a better option to run. Moving on to the spells, you run 3 Spellbook of Secrets. This is your Rhoda for the deck. It searches you any spellbook card, which, along with all the spellbook spell cards, also includes Spellbook Magician of Prophecy. Because he has spellbook in his name, he is a searchable target for Spellbook of Secrets. So if you open up with one and not the other, you can go grab either one. But again, this is really just for setting up your plays for the rest of the game. This is what allows you to search out whatever you don't have in your hand to get it, so that you don't have any issues running from that point on. 2 Spellbook Towers. Obviously, this is the broke card of the deck.
The expensive card in the deck.
The expensive card of the deck next to High Priestess. I mean, what can I say? It's a pot of greed every turn. You tell everybody. I'm saying, in lieu of your draw phase, it's a pot of greed. So if you have a spellcaster on the field or in your graveyard, which is really what makes this card busted, if it was just on the field, it'd be okay. But the fact that even if you have one in your graveyard, you still get the effect, that's nuts. You take a spellbook spell card, put it on the bottom of your deck, draw an extra card. That's just dumb. When it's destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can also special summon a spellcaster out of your deck with a level equal to or less than the number of spellbook cards in the graveyard. Not used as often as I would like, but it's a nice option if you've loaded up the graveyard. It's pretty easy to get out of High Priestess that way as well. Spellbook of Wisdom. This is essentially a lance for the deck.
Right.
You target any spellcaster, and you can either make it unaffected by spell cards or trap cards for the turn. So, if you go Breaker, they have that bottom list. You go Lance, call traps. Now you've already gotten rid of a spell card. If they already have another one down, it's unaffected for the rest of the turn, and you can pop it with that still. So, that's awesome. When they go for that Dark Hole against the High Priestess, that's their only out. Lance it, call spells. She stays on the field, so they just went minus on that. Spellbook of Life, it's actually probably one of my favorite cards in the deck. It's essentially a premature burial, a little bit different, but it's an equip spell card. For cost, you have to banish another spellcaster monster from your graveyard and reveal another spellbook card from your hand, and then you can special summon the spellcaster out onto the field. And then its level is modulated by the level of the spellcaster you removed. So one of the other reasons I mentioned that Veiler was a tuner is because there's actually some pretty fun plays you can do with Spellbook of Life to use a lot of really cool old synchro spellcasters. So that's pretty nice. The nice thing about this, unlike Preemie or a lot of other cards that get stuff back from the grave, is that if this card is mystical after the fact, the spellcaster stays on the field, its level just goes back down. But the spellcaster stays. So really, their only play is to warning it or to mystical it upon activation. Past that point, the spellcaster stays on the field. 2 Spellbook of Power, another underrated card. It's a common, which is kind of nuts. But it gives a spellcaster an extra 1,000 attack, and if it destroys a monster by battle, you get to search for a Spellbook spell card. So again, being able to push over things that you couldn't push over without is really nice. And again, being able to essentially use this to replace your hand with a Spellbook card that you'd rather have is pretty awesome as well. I was running this card as a 1-of, or a 2-of, and now I'm running it as a 1-of, siding the second. Spellbook of Eternity.
No?
Yes.
Oh, not you.
Shut
I'm
up.
sorry. It's on Sky.
It targets a remove from play spellbook card and adds it back to your hand. So any targets that you remove for High Priestess's effect, or Spellbook of Fate, which I'm going to show next, you get it right back to your hand, which is pretty awesome.
Oh, word.
And then Spellbook of Fate is the other 1-of, only because it has a potentially expensive cost. It's quick play, which is great, and it has 3 levels of effects. You can remove 1, 2, or 3 Spellbook spell cards from your graveyard, and based on the number you remove, you can either bounce a set spell or trap card to the field, Book of Moon, or Book of flip face down, defense, or face up attack a monster, or banish a card your opponent controls. I like the second effect the most, honestly. It just is really nice for being able to. Well, for instance, today I had a game where I had to summon a Spellbook Magician, and if it stayed on the field in attack position, I actually would have lost because I knew my opponent could put something with enough attack to get over it and kill me. So when he went into attack, I actually used this, removed 2, booked my Spellbook Magician. The attack went through, so I got to search, and I didn't die off of it. And then next turn, I just pushed in for game. So that part's really nice too. The fact that it doesn't only affect your opponent, it also affects your stuff as well. Random tech I'm running, Magical Dimension. It was one of my favorite old spellcaster, cards when it came out. It's really good for getting dead priestesses out of hand because you can go Spellbook Magician and then not have to worry about them, obviously summoning something that's gonna get over it. So if you go Spellbook Magician and then on their turn, like a standard play of, like Tour Guide into something big, They go into attack, you go Magical Dimension, sack off your Spellbook Magician, put out the High Priestess, and then pop their monster, which is a really nice play. Unfortunately, as good as High Priestess is, when she's in the hand without 3 Spellbooks, she is kind of dead. And then, obviously, standard killer cards, Monster Reborn, Dark Hole, Heavy Storm. No explanation needed for those.
Oh, word.
Traps are pretty standard. 2 Bottomless, 2 Deep Prison, 2 Compulse. I'm only running 1 Warning. I just don't like it at 2 anymore. And 1 Judgment, just because it's still a necessary card. But I found like 2 Warnings were a little tough. In all the decks I've been playing, I've actually been dropping my Warnings down to 1. The other card that I teched in for this deck specifically is Magic Train. Johnny Nagel plays this in his...
Side deck.
He main decked it for Rhode Island. He side decked it for Seattle. In his Gadget deck. He's a good player, what can I say? So he mained it in Rhode Island, and he sided it in.
Pretty sure he cited it.
No, I'm pretty sure he said it.
Yeah, I saw the deck profile by Serious Streamer Pro.
I thought he made
cited.
it. Either way, it's a really good card. And in
It
this
is a good
deck,
card.
your job is really to protect the field spell. So when they go mystical or heavy, or situationally, like if you can't have a dark hole or a reborn going off, a lot of times those cards are top deck cards, or they're not, they're the only spell card in the hand. So to have this, it really makes them either think about losing another spell card out of their hand, which in the current meta is usually a power spell, or just letting it get negated. It's also good in situationally in like the hero matchup when they rip up that Miracle Fusion off the top. Being able to say no to those big spell cards is really nice.
Look at all these one.
For the extra deck, I run a Shining Elf for level 2s. It's really good going to it with 2 Spellbook Magicians. Except for the damage step, when your opponent normally special summons a monster, you move material, permanently loses 500 attack. Again, this with a High Priestess out is really tough for your opponent to make something that's going to get over a card. So they really have to look into crashing with something instead. 3,000 is usually the biggest thing you're going to see on the field, and being able to immediately put it down to 25 with a High Priestess on the field really limits their options. Gachi, obviously, it's busted. There's not much we can say about that. It's a starter deck card that's pretty much a staple in every deck that can make it. And Augusto Phoenix, being able to push in for 3,000 damage is nice.
A DT Augusto Phoenix, not a single.
So that's what I run for level 2s. At locals right now, I'm testing Ball Chain. It's obviously not legal on the higher tournament levels, but at locals it's perfectly legal. It's nice if you need to fuel the graveyard for Spell Tower, because it's going to get you that extra draw next turn. It's also nice if you need to set up like a Temperance play for High Priestess. You can just stack it right to the top of the deck and rip it off the top for your next turn and go right into it. Obviously, Ball Chain is pretty busted, but it is only an 18, so you really only expect to get that one turn out of it, so you really have to make it count. I'm also experimenting with Evigishiki Mirrorgeist.
Explain that part, because a lot of people don't know what that is.
It's Aaron. When it attacks a defense position monster, it kicks it to the deck instead of sending it to the graveyard, which, for a lot of decks right now is pretty cool. Being able to pull this turn 1 off on Girgia, that's, their armor's going back in there instead of staying on the field. It's just an experimentation right now. I don't know how much I'm going to like it, but I wanted to try it out. Obviously, Utopia's in there. Not much to say about him. These are the 2 Prophecy Exceeds. A little tough to see because the ultimate is really, really, really shiny on those. Empress and Hierophant. This rank 5 and a rank 7. So like I said, Hierophant is really other than Big Eye, your level 7 target for 2 priestesses, or however else you can modulate a 7 with Spellbook of Life or something like that. Hierophant detaches an Exceeds material to destroy spell and trap cards up to the number of Spellbook cards in your graveyard. And Empress, I can't actually read, I'm just going to read it, it's a ton of text. It gains 300 attack for each Exceeds material, and then you can detach a material to shuffle your deck, reveal the top 5, and destroy monsters up to the number of Spellbook cards revealed. The nice thing about Empress is that you can't Starlight Road this, because the effect activates before you know how many cards you're going to reveal off the top of your deck. So while you could theoretically hit 2 or more, which would technically trigger Starlight Road, because Starlight Road doesn't know how many you're going to hit when you activate the effect, it can't be chained, which is a really, really nice added bonus to that effect.
Pro tip of the day. That's pro tip of the day.
Write that down. Big Eye. Every deck that can make this makes this. Yeah, he's got a really big eye, and he's got an eye for your monster. Every deck that can make this thing makes it. That was the dumbest shit I ever said.
That was great.
Super cheap
And it's on you.
craft mac.
Now forever etched into the fabric of history.
Mermails, Prophecy, Gadgets, Girgia. Any deck that can make this is playing it because it's such a good card. Being able to let them make their huge play and then putting this on the field and just taking complete advantage of it and taking it from them is awesome. I literally just watched one of my friends make this both Game 1 and Game 2 against a Samurai player and take a Shiin both games. You do all the work, and then I take your money. It's awesome. I think we all forgot what these are. These are white cards. Sometimes we play with them.
Inform you two what a white card is.
If for those that don't remember or just started playing in the last year, a white card is called the synchro. Sometimes they're pretty good. You can make them in this deck. Like I
I
said,
can't believe you actually explained to me this.
I'm making a joke.
I mean, I was making a joke, but you just have to.
All right, I took it a little too far. Like I said, Valor's a tuner.
Apologize to you two. Apologize to you two.
No, okay, sorry. Valor's a tuner. You can modulate levels with Spellbook of Life, so being able to make these is pretty clutch in some situations. Again, a lot of these are spellcasters just for the support that the deck runs for them. So Hyper Librarian, Tempest Magician, Arcanite Magician. Obviously, all really good cards for their own reasons. But because they're spellcasters and because this deck is spellcasters, you get the unique opportunity to run them. These two are my favorite things that I have in here. That's right, I'm not playing Waters, but these are in the extra deck. As I mentioned, Valor is a tuner. Spellbook Magician is a water. So modulating either one of their levels with Spellbook of Life and having the other one on the field allows you to make either one of these guys, and that is really good. Especially Delorean, because with the number of things that you have on the field that stay there that you can just replay, like Spellbook of Life, or like the Tower, which only does stuff during your standby phase, being able to bump those back for instant 1,000 is pretty awesome.
So you'd rather run the Gungnir over a Black Rose?
Yeah.
Why?
Just because of the control amount in this deck, having like steady back row and having the field spell on the field. If the field spell let me get its secondary effect whenever it was destroyed, I'd probably run a Black Rose over it. But because it has to be destroyed by opponent's card effect, I don't know. I just don't like losing that advantage with that card. And in all honesty, I haven't found a lot of situations where I could make a 7 and would prefer a Black Rose over a Gungnir. Last but not least, Stardust. Obviously, even the decks that don't play Synchros play this card because you run a Starlight Road and you make him. But obviously, unlike Starlight Road, being able to legitly sync into him is pretty great because then you can just keep negating stuff. So, no harm in syncing him for the full 8.
Sideboard.
The sideboard. As I mentioned, Kaiku, usually that gets swapped out. Jesus.
45-minute upload.
Side out the breakers, or some of the other ones that you don't think are really good in the matchup. Side this in.
Oh, that's right there, spellcasters.
Yeah,
Forgot about that.
totally spellcasters. In the event that you're running a deck that Valor is dead against, you side those out and go into Knights and Sorcerers. They're also a tuner, so it gives you access to all the same stuff that you need a tuner for, but now you don't have a dead Valor in your hand for 80 turns. Also, side note, no one ever usually does it, but Knights and Sorcerer actually does get its effect when especially something from the graveyard. So if you Spellbook of Life this thing out, you remove 2 cards from your opponent's graveyard.
In the middle of the video?
Middle of profile, I got Chris O'Neill here.
It's a profile? Oh,
Yeah, I got Chris O'Neill here looking at cards in the middle of profile.
Fucking regional winners.
Double Mystical, if you notice, this deck actually doesn't run any spell trap removal besides heavy. Because it runs so much spot removal through other cards. But siding in the Mysticals when you need that extra spot removal is just necessary. Double System down, we all get it. Gadgets and Gear Gear or decks, those are pretty explosive things when they flip that Ultimate Offering and you can last through the turn, or when Gear Gear goes nuts and spams a bunch of shit on the field. It's nice to have that removal for that. I side a second Magical Dimension.
Second one.
Yeah, just when I don't feel that there's any back row that I have to worry about. Again, just being able to attack in during damage step and make something go away.
Yeah.
I actually did that in a game against a kid today. I didn't have game without this because I went attack, and they didn't have anything, so I Magical Dimension something away to bring something else out and attack for game. Because it's a quick play, you have that option.
Pro plays.
Second Spellbook of Eternity, if you're running something that's playing macro, or if you know they're going to go into macro in the sideboard, to be able to get back the spellbooks that you need. One's not enough, so now you run the second one. One Rivalry. I only run one just because there's so many decks that rely on the same type that it's not that great, but it does stop Exceed plays in almost all cases. So having the one in there is nice. Double Shadow Imprisoning. What can I say? Chaos Dragons exist. They're annoying. Insector's just one.
You're not gonna use them. You're just looking
Enough
at
said.
them, knowing where they are.
You know, everyone forgets that's a deck until it tops. And double Soul Drain. Again, waters are a deck now.
This is like the MVP of the format right now.
This is the you're right. This is the MVP of the format right now. I mean, Soul Drain is pretty much what you want to see turn 1 against
Don't tell him
waters.
what to do, all right?
Awesome. That's the deck.
That's the deck, guys.
That's Kyle Burns, YouTube.
Should I conclude
20
this?
minutes later.
Let's conclude this.